Four defenders, two offensive players, the Cleveland Browns 2024 NFL draft class. We start to break it all down. Now, your latest Locked On Browns is live.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate you all who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keeps growing and growing. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. How is everybody doing? Your host, Jeff Lloyd. 2024 NFL Draft is in the books. The 2024 Cleveland Browns draft class consists of two defensive tackles, an offensive guard, a wide receiver, a linebacker, and a cornerback. Segment 3, we'll get to some thoughts overall on the draft class. Certainly a different vibe from this year's NFL Draft as far as the war room at Berea. We'll get to that. First selection made Friday night, number 54 overall. Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State, Streetsboro High School, Cleveland area native, always known him as Mike. As everybody knows, I have a great relationship with Pete Smith over at the OBR. Pete has been with the Streetsboro program for a long time. I've known about Michael Hall and talked about Michael Hall with Pete since he was a sophomore, junior in high school. Incredible athlete. I still remember the day it came that Ohio State showed up to Streetsboro, offered Mike. Mike accepted on the spot, talking with Pete about that. Mike went on to have a really solid career at Ohio State, certainly some missed time. The draft process, and, obviously Michael Hall not there very long at Ohio State, gone within about 5 semesters to pursue his dream of the NFL. Worked with Coach Ed in the training process. Coach Ed is somebody I have known for a while. Ed had a couple of guys go in the first round. Certainly had Michael Hall Jr. here go in the second round of the Cleveland Browns. Mike was able to put on a little weight to do his pro day, almost 300 pounds. Very, very athletic guy. Some of the knocks, the criticisms were not a lot of reps as far as, run downs, but a plus pass rusher to this point from being such a young age. I think that is the thing. And you heard me say many a times that I thought Mike Hall Jr. would be a beautiful, beautiful pairing for a Jim Schwartz defense. Mike was one of the guys we had pegged for a long time to be the possible selection here at 54. My final mock, I had Ben Sinnott. Ben Sinnott actually went pick 53 overall. Browns were on the clock, 54. That is where they drafted Mike. Mike's going to come in. He's not maybe necessarily going to play right away, but with the pass rush abilities, that should work well. And one thing I have talked about as far as what I like about Michael Hall Jr. is even at almost 300 pounds, Mike can play an edge in pass rushing situations. The Browns love to mix it up. They love to mix up their looks. Zadarius Smith on the inside, Myles Garrett on the inside, Alex Wright can certainly play on the inside. There's certainly times where I think a guy like Michael Hall Jr. can go play on the outside. You have other guys in pass rushing situations, Shelby Harris, Maurice Hurst as well. Certainly Ogbenai, Okoronkwo. The Browns have a very, very deep pass rusher group. And if you think you are going to be a winning team, that is what you want, because you're going to be rushing after the quarterback a lot late in games as teams are trying to come from behind to beat you. So I think that played out very well. Very nice situation for Mike Hall Jr. We'll get to more during the week about Mike Hall. We're certainly going to have Pete Smith on because, Pete's going to be able to give us some fun stories about Mike Hall, the young man, as opposed to now Mike, the full grown man. Third round pick, 85 overall, Zak Zinter, offensive guard out of Michigan. Everybody knows the ironic twist. It was my call that got pushed into Zak Zinter, who actually broke his leg in the Ohio State-Michigan game. Ironic twist that these two now will spend, obviously years together here as Cleveland Browns, have already talked as Browns, the apologies and the awkwardness of, hey, man, sorry. Hey, it's just a game. Nobody's ever trying out and hurt to somebody. With Zak Zinter, right guard at Michigan, the thought process certainly is he's not going to be a starter this year. He should be a future starter. A lot of people question where the money as far as the Browns offensive line is going to go come 2025. I don't think they'll move on from both guards that year. Maybe Joel final season. We don't know, of course. Could Wyatt Teller, basically be looking, at something different after 2024, but you go out and get in front of it. So it does have, two guards now with Michael Dunn. And of course, now Zak Zinter coming into the fold gives you a backup left guard, gives you a backup right guard for the Browns here in 2024. Zinter, obviously one of the many guys out of Michigan that was drafted this year. Many offensive linemen went to the combine from the University of Michigan. Zach certainly didn't participate. The belief is that he now has a clean bill of health. How much he can do in rookie camp, I'm not sure, but a good sign for Zak Zinter. 23 years old, physical, just tough guy, and actually moves pretty well. Kind of has a reputation a little bit more of a mauler, but he still gets out, can pull. Very solid player, Zak Zinter. That was a nice selection. Then came that gap that we were going to talk about. It was going to be 70 picks or so before the Browns got on the clock again at 156. That is where the wide receiver market dried up. That is where the offensive tackle market dried up. Did the Browns not want to give up future assets to move up? That's why they didn't go that route. Was maybe this class, it was just one where the Browns were going to, take it as it came, and then obviously replenish with all eyes towards the 2025 NFL draft. Pick 156, Jamari Thrash out of Louisville. Ran in the 4.4s at the combine, very productive in his final 2 seasons in college. This past fall, Louisville, of course, the year before that, finished his career at Georgia State, almost averaging about 1,000 yards, and I think it was 6.5 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Tested well. His tape is good. We talked about this also with the Browns wide receivers. They don't want specifics. You know what I'm saying? They want you to be able to play the X. They want you to be able to play the Y. They want you to be able to line up in the slot. This is things that Thrash does have experience with. And this is what the Browns like to do. We know Cooper does that. We know Moore does that. We know Jerry Jeudy from his film with the Denver Broncos is a guy that can line up in several different areas. The Browns always want to be giving you different looks. He comes into the room probably as wide receiver 6 right now. You figure Tillman as wide receiver 4, Bell wide receiver 5, or however you want to work that out. Thrash comes into the room there. Only question, and the thing that really maybe sticks out to me is the small hand size. I think it was 8.25 inches. It is a small wide receiver hand size, which did contribute to obviously him having focus drop issues, but not a terrible selection at 156 by any means. Browns did get a wide receiver, Jamari Thrash, at pick 156 after finishing 1 season at Louisville. We're going to continue here. We'll talk about some of the defenders that were taken on day 3. Your latest Locked On Browns, the Cleveland Browns 2024 draft classes in the books. We continue. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Did you know Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace for the NBA? Playoffs in full swing. A lot of good series going on right now. So you can get your playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can get deals. Look, Game 5s are coming up here. Game 6s, maybe some people can't go on a Monday night. You can wait till the very last second, sit outside the stadium, get yourself a decent seat for a decent price. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. All of those things make Game Time one of the better apps to use. Seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You're not going to get suckered into a bad seat with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns, continues. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd. If you're not a part of it by now, make a new plan. Stand, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcast. We're talking about the Cleveland Browns 2024 draft class. Obviously started Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State, Zak Zinter, guard out of Michigan, Jamari Thrash, wide receiver, Louisville. Browns then another big gap from 156 before getting back on the clock in round 6 at pick 206. They draft Nathaniel Watson, 6'2", 240 pounds, 2023 SEC Defensive Player of the Year, had 10 sacks playing the Sam linebacker position. The comparisons, and it even came from the Browns when they did the post-draft presser, they felt this was a bigger linebacker, can kind of maybe one day be the guy to fill the shoes of Sione Takitaki. Left during free agency. Sione Takitaki certainly had a nice run here in his time with the Cleveland Browns. The play, now a powerful guy, moves forward well. The 10 sacks speak well. So this is a guy that can play some Sam, certainly can play a little bit on the edge, reminiscent by the 10 sacks. It was 35 pressures he had last year for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now, there is a little bit of off-field with Nathaniel Watson. That's all I'm going to say, so you can do the research for yourself. But obviously the Browns felt comfortable enough in those questions to still make Watson their selection here. We've talked about this linebacking room. It's going to start to get a little, it's getting a little bit of a makeover, as it is now the mainstay, and the king of that room certainly is Mr. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, most likely looking towards a contract extension here. One of the storylines to follow here over the rest of the offseason until we get to training camp. Jordan Hicks was brought in. He will be a playmaker for this defense this year. You also talk about bringing in Devin Bush, who will most likely be the Mike. Again, for those who felt the Browns weren't active in the linebacker position earlier in the draft, the Mike is not as important for the Cleveland Browns as one might think. It is technically a first down player. He's the first player to come off the field as the middle linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. JOK is going to stay on the field. Jordan Hicks is certainly going to stay on the field as the Browns start to bring in nickel dime packages. Of course, you have such a deep secondary unit at the cornerback position and at the safety position. These are players that the Browns want on the field. They're almost as big as your Mike linebacker is going to be, but they are certainly more athletic. They are certainly faster, and they certainly have better coverage ability. So Watson, it'll be work for him. He could be a guy 6'2", 240. He's got some tight end type size to him. He is a guy that could also be here to play on special teams. The Browns have several of these guys. Mahmoud Diabate, of course, Charlie Campbell last year. There is a Charlie Thomas last year. There is an interesting group at the linebacker position, and any one of these guys can step up and make a name for themselves. Tony Fields obviously been here for a long time. So the Browns linebacker room is going to be a lot of competition there as far as making the final 53 and even being one that gets to dress on game day. So although not one of the most major positions on the Cleveland Browns, there is going to be a lot of activity and a lot of battles going on with that linebacker room all the way up until training camp ends. Round 7 selection 227, Myles Harden, cornerback out of South Dakota. If you got to see Andrew and Barry, Kevin Stefanski tried to FaceTime with Myles Harden. Apparently huge draft party for Myles Harden. He is a typical nickel type, 5'10" and change in the 180s. Athleticism was good, ran a 4.5, had a really good 10-yard split, 6.88 3-cone, very impressive. 3-cone is a very, very telling testing number for your nickel slot players. You're in a short area of space. There's a lot of traffic. You cannot have missteps. Otherwise, whatever route you're covering, which is usually a short route if you were a nickel, but if you were late on it, if your footwork is not great, those are usually, those 4 or 5 yard routes that all of a sudden turn into 20, 25 yard gains and usually are backbreakers. Certainly has competition. Greg Newsome is there and has done a fantastic job for this team. Harden's got just that edge to him. And, Pete Smith and I, for years, we've always talked about defensive backs. And, we like those guys that got a little bit of prick to them, they just, guys feed off those type of personalities, the cockiness to them, the guys who just don't shut up. Not everybody is that type of guy. You just have to have that type of personality within you. But it is really, really a big thing because your teammates thrive off of that stuff. Your teammates get excited about that stuff. That stuff ends up building some unity. The type of guy that maybe gets himself in the wrong spot on the opponent's sidelines, running his mouth a little bit, and then a couple of guys got to get in between and make sure nothing happens, no 15-yard penalties get drawn. But every team needs a little spunk. Every team needs a little attitude. Every team needs a little, just somebody that's just going to stand up for their team. And he is that type of guy, Myles Harden. He gets beat for a 20-yard reception. He breaks up a 20-yard reception. Either way, Myles Harden is over there yapping away. Certainly my type of defensive back. Used to hate to compete against those types of defensive backs because even when you got them, they were still there running their mouths and you look like, bro, what are you doing? But, some people are wired differently, and it's still a key part of any defense. You want that attitude, and you want to let them know, hey, you may have got me this time, but we are coming back 110% next time, and we're going to win the next rep, even if you got me on this one. Closed it out. Second defensive tackle drafted by the Browns in this cycle, Jowon Briggs, defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. He is only 22 years old. He will tell you flat out on his X page right now that Jowon Briggs is only 22 years old. Very different type of collegiate athlete, already married with a family. I think that is probably something that interested the Browns. It's difficult with these kids. You're going to now hand them money and, you're worried, how are they going to react? How are they going to handle it? Fame, having money. I think for Jawan Briggs, it's, hey, this is what I've been working for. This is what I've been hoping for. As I am already married and I have children and I want to be able to provide a stable life and environment for my family. Briggs played with Cincinnati. Sorry, the allergies still getting me. Briggs played a lot with Cincinnati in different roles. Again, another thing he told you on social media as far as what his assignments were each and every year. I am a little surprised the Browns took 2 defensive tackles, but I honestly probably shouldn't. If one of the things, and I'm sure you guys all know that I've been harping on, is that Browns room right now, your top 4 defensive tackles are 29, 30, 31, and 32 years old. It was a room with Shelby Harris on a 1-year deal, Jefferson on a 1-year deal, Maurice Hurst on a 1-year deal. Well, technically Harris is a 2-year. And Dalvin Tomlinson, this will be year 2 of his deal. At those ages, there was no future to this room. Not much of a future. And look, for Siaki Ika, get to work. Nobody's saying Siaki Ika is not going to make this team, but maybe Siaki Ika's got a lot of work to do. And I think the Browns probably a little match maybe under the can of Siaki Ika, as right now they probably have 7 defensive tackles who could make this roster, and the odds are most likely that they would only keep 5. I'm going to give you some general thoughts I have on this Cleveland Browns 2024 draft class. Everybody stick around. Appreciate y'all. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers can trade with a friend to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games, like digging for a treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win for rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. Of course, I appreciate you all for making the show your first listen every single day. Join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Shows always available, always free wherever you get your podcasts. Now, this class, and it is weird, Browns had 6 selections, made every one of the 6 selections, and did not have one draft trade. Very strange. It's not the way Andrew Berry's been through his first 4 drafts. Again, the Browns have capital for 2025, have for their first round pick in 2025, something they haven't had in 3 drafts. Quarterback position wasn't addressed, no doubt, right? Nobody saw that. Nobody believed that was coming. The running back class, I am not lying. I am really, really surprised. My initial thoughts is Nick Chubb in a better place than we expect? Is Pierre Strong possibly in the fold for 2024? And as much as all of you people might be doubting Jerome Ford, and I thought Jerome Ford played pretty damn well last year, is Jerome Ford in a lot better standing than some people are ready to give him credit for? Jamari Thrash out of Louisville. The Browns' top 3 receivers this season for 2024 were drafted in the offseason this year, the year before, and the year before that. So I understand everybody. It was a great wide receiver class. Why weren't you in on it? The Browns have found other ways to build and add to that wide receiver room. Again, that 70 pick drop between 85 to 156 was a ginormous gap. I think the Browns just didn't want to give up any 2025 draft capital, so they were going to hold pat. Didn't trade down, certainly strange. Tight end, what in the world is going on with the tight end room? David Njoku is a star. We know that. But after that, that room is a ghost town. Jordan Akins, Ricci, of course. They did get to a UDFA, who I've had some conversations with already. It's a very makeable room for a UDFA tight end to make the Cleveland Browns. That's a position I thought they would address. I'm stunned to this point. Stunned. They did not. We all talked offensive tackles. The Browns apparently, they did get a couple of fellas in UDFA. Something they didn't address. Again, did that 70 pick gap have something to do with it? We all felt the offensive tackle room was going to be something the Browns went after hard. Did not use one of their 6 selections on that position. Zinter, solid pick, great future. The center position, look, we all know who the starter is in Ethan Posick, and Luke Whippler is most likely the heir apparent of the center position. To ignore that position made sense. Defensive end, yes, again, it makes sense not to address that room. You are 5 deep already. You have a couple other guys here, and I was Isaiah Thomas. So made a lot of sense there as well. The 2 picks at defensive tackle, certainly a little bit surprising, but I said many times, not much future to that room with 29, 30, 31, and 32 years old already manning that position. The linebacker room, again, Nathaniel Watson coming in, maybe with one day could be your Sione Taki type. You understand it, but the room as it stands now is your starting Mike is Devin Bush, most likely. Your Willie is Jeremiah Usu-Koramoah. Jordan Hicks, you go to nickel. Obviously, Bush comes off the field. You go to dime. It'll be most likely Jordan Hicks coming off the field, and then JOK being almost an every down linebacker. But if he can't, Jordan Hicks can certainly play the linebacker position and the dime position, or you can start walking up safeties because you have a bunch of them, and you could always use a Grant Delpit to play the linebacker position in your dime look. The cornerback position, of course, you only brought in one, and you drafted, of course, Myles Harden out of South Dakota. Possible nickel down the line, would be competing for a roster spot against Halassi, would be a name there. Cam Mitchell has nickel experience. Greg Newsome has nickel experience. I do like the fact that if you look at the way the room looks right now, you certainly have Ward who can play outside, Martin Emerson who can play outside, Greg Newsome can play outside, Greg Newsome can play inside, Cam Mitchell can play nickel, good special teamer. And now, of course, Harden, certainly a slot guy, and then He brought in the corner, special team player. So there's a lot of competition with that in that room. I like the diversity of that room, that you have guys that can play inside now. They have 3 guys that can play nickel. That's pretty smart idea with the emphasis and just the overall talent at the slot position currently in the NFL. The Browns were not in on a safety in this draft, did not spend a selection on one. Makes a ton of sense, to be completely honest with you. You have Grant Delpit here in a long-term deal. You have Juan Thornhill here on a long-term deal. Rodney McLeod came back. Hickman had a very, very nice rookie season from a UDFA standpoint. Had a huge interception return, as we all know, against the New York Jets, securing the Browns' opportunity to make the 2023 playoffs. The Anthony Bell, knocking on the age of 28 years old, but finally got some legitimate playing time last year. Not just as a special teamer, but got some time within the defense. Remember, had the game-winning interception, of course, against the Chicago Bears on the Hail Mary. So these guys have been tried and true and tested. So that's 5 deep at the safety position. It's a nice spot to be in for any NFL franchise. So the Browns having no interest in drafting a safety with one of their 6 selections certainly makes a ton of sense. Again, it was just a weird vibe, as normally you can see exactly what the Browns are looking at position-wise. The fact they did not address tight end, I really am waiting to see what else comes from that, is a big thing for me. The running back room, is Nick better than we truly thought? These are all things we're looking at now that the class and the draft is over. Again, the Browns, 6 players in this class: Michael Hall Jr., Zak Zinter, Jamari Thrash, Nathaniel Watson, Myles Harden, Jowon Briggs. We're going to have a ton more coming. But the hay is in the barn. The Cleveland Browns 2024 draft class is set. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here at Locked On Browns. As always, I appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd is a bunch of filthy animals, but they're my filthy animals, and I love them to death. Join the filthy animals. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things dog pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go, Browns.